Hello and welcome to the Blueprints Behind Business interview series. I'm your host, Brad Douglas, and today I'm joined by Joe Nugent with Joe the Home Pro. Joe, thank you so much for joining us. Would you like to kick it off with a little brief introduction of who you are and what your business is?
Yeah, thanks, Brad. I'm really excited to be here. Thanks for having me on the program. I really appreciate it. A little bit about me. Joe Nugent, owner of Joe the Home Pro. We been in business now almost 9 years, which is kind of crazy to think about that. Like March will be 9 years since I launched this thing, which is kind of fun. So it's a home inspection company based in Southwest Florida here, and yeah, we're just doing some really cool stuff right now, and we have some really nice things that are happening to us. We're really fortunate to have the support of the community and those around us that are just pushing us through. And it's kind of funny, we were talking just a little bit ago about like how things kind of started, and it's really it's like the dumbest thing ever, because July of 2013 I unexpectedly lost my job. And
Mm,
so I was married at the time. My kids were really little, and I was like, okay, I'm done like having people pull the purse strings on
mm,
whether or not I have a paycheck or not. And my wife and I at the time were watching like a ton of HGTV, and there was this show about this home inspector, and I was like, I could totally do this. Like, I could figure this out.
right.
So I started to look into it, and next thing you know, like I kind of got into it, just kind of almost by happenstance, right? And then 3.5 years ago, almost 4 years ago now, because of COVID, my full-time job went away, but luckily I've been building my business nights and weekends. And so for the last 3.5 years, I've been full-time in Joe the Home Pro, which has been awesome.
Fantastic. Congratulations on that. I think many of us sometimes, maybe end up in that situation, work and change and stuff like that. I think it was kind of birthed or grew out of a situation, but when you think about starting your own business, we got your kind of initial spark, but what really made you take that entrepreneurial leap?
So it's been something that I've been like wanting to do since I was 30 years old, is work for myself. I read a book called Rich Dad Poor Dad by
Mhm.
Robert Kiyosaki, and
Yeah.
now my friend and mentor Sharon Lechter, she was a co-author of that book, and that's kind of like the book that changed my life. And I just knew early on, like spending 20 years in corporate America, I was like, this is just not for me. Like, I don't like people telling me what to do, or like begging for like your 2 weeks of vacation, and then being made to feel guilty about taking it, and missing out on time with my kids and all that kind of stuff. So I think for me it was just like, things were building once I started Joe the Home Pro, and I saw things were like really starting to turn a corner. It kind of like made me say like, okay, I'm ready to make this jump. And then I came back from a mastermind retreat, and the decision was kind of made for me, which was kind of funny. So I was planning on leaving anyways in like another like 60 or 90 days. And then I came back from this retreat, and they're like, hey, we're gonna lay off because of COVID. I was like, awesome, see you later, bye, peace out. Like, they're like, no, we want you like to sign. I'm like, yeah, sign here, date here, initial here. Like, I'm out the door. Let me say bye
Sure.
to the team. My mindset was just in such a strong position that I was like, let's go, and you look back on it now, or at least I do, and I'm like, wow, why didn't I do this 5 years ago? Like I mean, working for myself, first of all, I've never worked harder in my life. I thought
Or
being in the hospitality industry was tough and working a lot of hours, but like working for yourself is 10 times harder and longer, but it's also that much more enjoyable.
No, you have really great points there. It must be, liberating to be able to be in that situation, to know that you can step away, you've built something. But you did kind of touch on something I wanted to kind of move into when you think about, um, starting your own business and how do you maintain a little bit of that work-life balance? Because it is hard. When you're working on your own business, you work hard. You work harder than you ever have. But
Yeah.
how do you have any kind of personal rituals or things that help you stay motivated and focused and you know keeping your business going, and not only that, but yourself and your family and life?
Yeah, it's funny. I've been saying for a while, I don't really think there's such a thing as work-life balance. I kind of feel like it's work-life integration, just because of how connected we are nowadays, right? With technology and stuff. It's definitely a big challenge. I think especially as a small business owner, I have a small team. There's only a few people on my team. So for me, it's like I try to protect like those times with my kids, right? So being divorced, not having my kids full time, that kind of like forces me to stop and put the brakes on things. So like those weekends where I have my kids, I really try to block out, okay, I'm not going to do any inspections. I'm going to try to limit my time on emails and phone calls and stuff like that. It's really tough for me though, because I'm just by nature, I'm just kind of like a maniac where I'm like, if someone needs something, I want to get it done for them. I want to help them. And that's why I went into business, is to help other people. My
Yeah.
girlfriend does a fantastic job. She calls them mindful moments where,
Yeah.
she'll like wake up in the morning and kind of do like her own little ritual and have like these mindful moments for herself before she starts to like check emails and everything, where I'm like, first thing I do is grab my phone and I'm like, okay, scrolling through like what's going on, what's happening today. I am probably not the best example of work-life balance or work-life integration, but I do try to like put some parameters around it. What I learned in 2023 was I really have to like learn how to put some boundaries around some things. And it's important for me to have my time, as well as, to have time for my company, time with my family, time with the kids, whatever that looks like. So it's a challenge, I think, for any small business owner. I think especially too living in Southwest Florida, just because of the nature of the service industry and the seasonality of it. So it's like right now we're in our high season. So it's like phones and emails are going off like crazy. It's definitely tougher now than it is like in, say, August or September.
So true, so true, and yes, like you say, it's season, so lots of people here needing your support for sure. So, now that you've had this going for a few years, are there any kind of common misconceptions about running a business, and how have you addressed any of those?
Let's see, that anybody can do it, because that's not true. Not everybody can do it. That it's amazing that you can work for yourself because it's just a 9 to 5. It's definitely not a 9 to 5. It's a 9 a.m. to 9 a.m. the next day and then start over again. I feel like sometimes, I just think like, I don't know about misconceptions, but I think that there's people out there that are like, wow, that's really amazing. Like, I'm so jealous of you. Like, look at all the stuff you have, which I don't have stuff, but like, there's a lot of entrepreneurs that have like, some really cool toys. And it's like,
Hmm.
people just, it's that iceberg theory. They see the top of that iceberg and they're like, oh man, that's so cool. They don't see underneath the water and all the hard work and dedication and sweat and tears that went into building what you're building. I mean, I remember, oh my gosh, this is like years ago, 5, 6 years ago, but I remember sitting in my kid's room at like 11 o'clock at night or midnight and just crying. And I'm going, what am I doing right now? I'm looking at my 2 kids sleeping and I'm going, how am I going to pay rent? How am I going to make the next payment for this? How am I going to provide for them? Because you have like those ebbs and flows and those ups and downs. And so I think anyone that thinks it's like the straight line of success, or that it's easy, or whatever the case is, those are really common misconceptions that I hear from people. I think you and I know differently, that it's not like that. And, the pathway to success is usually a bunch of like squiggly lines and curly cues and
Sure.
all. So I just think, there's a lot of people that think that, oh, well, it's really easy. It's fun. It's all this. And it can be fun and it can be easy at times, but there's also a ton of hard work and dedication and sacrifice that has to go into it.
Yeah, I was just speaking with someone yesterday, and they kind of use like a bodybuilder. You don't look like that overnight. It takes time, it takes work, it takes effort, focus, taking action. So, really great insight there. I appreciate it. Um, so, to stay adaptable and open to change, a lot of times the business landscape changes. Here in Southwest Florida, we've got some seasonality, that kind of stuff. Are there any kind of strategies that you use to stay innovative or stay focused and continue to maintain your business on a annual basis?
Yeah, so I think one of the things that I'm always like, I guess like really just hyper focused on is I never want to stay stagnant. So
Mm.
I spent 20 years to the day actually in the hospitality industry, working in hotels and resorts in a variety of sales and catering capacities and managerial type roles. And one of the things that I learned from my hospitality days is there's a lot of old school hospitality people out there. Like, And it's like, oh, this is the way we've always done it, which is like the scariest phrase in the world to me, right? I just freak out when I hear that phrase. So I think for me though, Brad, really what it is it's about continuing to keep up with what's next, right? It's like, even though we reached this level of success, I'm like, how do we get to here? And then how do we get to here? And it's keep looking on the horizon of what is coming up. And I think having my team involved in it, asking their
Mm.
opinion and bringing them into the mix has been really good because we get some really good ideas and opinions on stuff. I've really enjoyed that aspect of it. I also just think like talking to the right people. Like, hey, what are you seeing? Like for me, realtors are like my lifeline, right? Of like
Sure.
how we get booked out all the time. So talking to as many realtors as I can is awesome because there's a lot of amazing ones that are out there that are like, okay, here's what's going to happen in 6 months or a year or 18 months. And they're talking about different projections. And when you can talk to various people in those roles, it helps me focus and say, okay, here's the direction we need to go, or here's what we need to be doing next, or wow, we have something coming up right now. We're going to need to pivot in a certain way, which we did the second half of last year. We had to pivot when the market took a dip. So just understanding those things and nuances of the industry and just keep talking to as many people as I can. I just feel like the more knowledge I can have, the more better informed decision I can make.
Yeah, having those connections and your network and other people that are working in the industry and your neighbors. I mean, they're in the trenches with you, so it's great to stay close to those, and that way you can at least manage the future a little bit better. So thinking about more of that future side of your plans and stuff, is there anything that you can share about your business or maybe what you see your next chapter? Uh,
So it's a
how it's
very
going?
timely question, my friend, because just a couple weeks ago, we launched Joe the Home Pro nationwide through a licensing program. So I'll tell you a
Fantastic.
really quick story. I was sitting on the couch late at night working, and it's like, 10 o'clock at night. It's kind of like you have the TV on, but you're not really paying attention to it. And I had on the History Channel, The Foods That Built America, which is like a phenomenal
Mhm.
series. It's just hilarious to think about like how food kind of came about in our country now, right? So I watch it and they're talking about ice cream and they're talking about the guy that invented Dairy Queen. And all of a sudden they came on the TV and they're like, oh yeah, and in 2 or 3 years he had 71 locations. And I was like, huh? And it's like something just hit me. It just struck me. Like I mean, I read stuff on business all the time. So, anyways, I like rewound it, played it again, and I was like, okay, this is it. This is the idea. Like, we need to take Joe the Home Pro nationwide. So it was one of those things where I'm up to like 2 in the morning researching and writing up business plans and like, you just get like this idea and I'm like, I can't let this go. Like this is like fire. Like I think I got something
Sure.
here. So anyways, I flushed it out with one of my business coaches and mentors, and we spent 2 months kind of drawing out the entire, business model for it. And I'm just really, really excited. We're going to help home inspectors across the country, whether they're existing home inspectors that are struggling or whether they're just getting into the industry. The idea is, how do we take the time and the money of mistakes? Like, so I always joke, like it took me 6 months and $15,000 of mistakes before I figured it out. And even then it was like still some more learning along the way. But how do we take that learning curve away from them and help them grow and ramp up faster? Most home inspectors are solopreneurs. They're amazing, amazing technical artists and they know how
Mhm.
to inspect a home better than anybody. But if you told them how do you scale and grow and run a business, they would look at you like you have three heads. So we want to kind of come in there and help them with like that business operation side. And when I was
Mhm.
looking at the franchise model, it's like 40 or 50 grand for a home inspection franchise. And I'm like, how can I sit there and charge somebody that when it didn't cost me that much money to get up and running? So I came
Mhm.
up with a licensing idea. So for $5,000, a one-time fee, they can license the company. We're going to give them templates and all the stuff that they need, logos, all that stuff, but they can run it however they want to run it. And that's the big difference between the franchise and the license side.
Mhm.
And then what I did is I was like, you know what? Let's not do like this 5%, royalty fee and then a 1% technology fee and a 2% marketing fee. I'm like, there's no point in nickel and diming people to death. Let's just do a flat $1,000 a month. And so what we do is I'm giving them like 3 or 4 months to kind of ramp up with their cash flow before we start saying, hey, it's a 5-year agreement. On the first of every month, we're just going to charge your credit card for $1,000. We're going to do coaching on Mondays. You're going to have a resource center, a private Facebook group, all these different things. And so the whole idea is, how do we help home inspectors struggle less and succeed more? And that's really the crux of the new licensing division. So I'm super pumped for that. And things in Southwest Florida, though, are going amazing. We're growing by leaps and bounds. We've doubled almost every year for the last 3 years. So it's been really, really fun to watch this thing kind of blossom.
Well, I'd love to hear that story, and fantastic on your next steps and things that you have in the future. I wish you all the best in that.
I appreciate
Um,
that.
so kind of to wrap it up a little bit here, what advice would you give, other aspiring entrepreneurs or anyone that's, looking to maybe start their own business, going forward? What challenges, and just how to motivate them to potentially take that step?
Well, a couple things I want to touch on. That's a great question because I get asked that question a lot from different people. And I think there's two really big key components. The first one is market research. I see too many businesses that go out of business because they're solving a problem that doesn't exist. As an
Mm,
entrepreneur, you're a problem solver. You're solutions based. So you see a problem and then you're like, okay, I'm going to create the solution that's going to solve that problem. So that's the first thing, is making sure that you're doing your market research. Number two, and I think this is probably the biggest one, get a mentor. Find a
mm,
mentor, find a business coach. You need a team of trusted advisors around you that you can go to at all times for help, guidance, advice. Being an entrepreneur, as you all know, is extremely lonely, and you can feel like you're on an island. And so when you can find a tribe and a group of people, like for myself, I belong to the Accelerators organization. I have for the last almost 6 years now, but I have like 9 different mentors and coaches in there. And then, there's a couple hundred people from all over the country that are different entrepreneurs in all different fields. So I was able to find a group of like-minded people that have really been able to help me and catapult me and so forth. But I think having that mentor, that business coach, is absolutely imperative because we don't know what we don't know.
mm.
And I'm reminded of that daily, that it's like, oh, I made this decision and it's like, well, that was pretty stupid. Like that was the wrong way to go. Like I should have probably talked to somebody about this first. So I think those two things are really, really imperative. And I think, if I could give any sort of motivation to anybody, I would just say it doesn't matter what anybody else thinks. It's your journey, not anyone else's. And I think too often, I think especially with social media, we get wrapped up in what the perception of others is going to be of us, of me, or whatever. So don't, like, just drown out the noise, mute the noise around you, focus on whatever your goals are, find a business coach, and make sure you're doing your market research.
Mm. That is fantastic wisdom, and appreciate those thoughts. So I can't thank you enough, for your time today. It was great meeting you and learning more about your entrepreneurial journey. To everyone watching, I look forward to seeing you in our next episode. We'll see you soon.